Hey guys, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. And last night I did a video on old school Jiu-Jitsu. Number one is that you started training before the year 2000, and the more before the year 2000, the better. And the reason why is because right at around the year 2000 is when we started to get a proliferation of tournaments in Jiu-Jitsu. A second thing really would be is if you learned under one of Gracie's sons. You know, that's not a hard and fast rule because there are also some early Jiu-Jitsu pioneers in the United States where you could have learned from as well. And I'm just talking the US, not talking about Brazil. Brazil actually, they made the turn from old school to new school a lot sooner than we did in the US. Back when I was training, we didn't really have any tournaments. In fact, my very first tournament happened when I was 4 years into Jiu-Jitsu in '93. And prior to that, there were 0 tournaments. In Hawaii, none. So Gracie's sons plus, let's say, the Machados, who were in the U.S. at the time, and a few other masters, current masters in Jiu-Jitsu, Fabio Santos, Pedro Sauer. There might be a couple others that I'm not mentioning. It's not because I'm trying to keep them out, I just don't remember them. And then also, if you learn under students of them who got their black belts, part of the Dirty Dozen, you would easily qualify in that. And the last criteria would be that if the school that you were at, if they were primarily focused on competition or they were primarily focused on what they call the Porrada, the Vale Tudo. A lot of schools were what they call Porrada schools. Porrada means like fight, and these are the schools that would set up Gracie challenges, that would have people coming in periodically, and they would have a student ready to go, ready to fight. Whereas now these days, we don't do that kind of stuff anymore. And the reason is because most people that come into an academy, that visit our academy, for instance, they already kind of know about Jiu-Jitsu. They want to learn it, and if they come in maybe from another academy, they already know Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, it's different. Now it's Jiu-Jitsu versus Jiu-Jitsu. Whereas the whole primary focus of old school Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was Jiu-Jitsu versus something else, some street fighter or karate practitioner, judo practitioner, wrestler, that kind of stuff, or like the Filipino martial arts, that type of thing. That's really what the whole old school thing was about. So if you want more on that, just go and look at that other video. This one, what I want to cover was really what new school is. So, is your school old school or new school? Well, if you know what old school is, then you know whether you're old school or new school. But really, what makes a new school Jiu-Jitsu academy? A lot of it has to do with competition. So you walk into a studio, and one of the first things they mention to you is, look up on my wall here, right? Or in my case here, you see all these medals. These are the championship medals that my students have earned, right? I have world champions here. I have, Texas champions, California champions, whatever tournament they were in, they're champions. And if they have a multitude of them, then they're new school. I mean, they focus on competition. Whereas, with House and Gracie, there weren't any medals. You didn't care about competition. Eventually we do it just because we wanted to see how we compared against other schools, not in House in particular, but other times, when I competed, I was in California by then. You just kind of want to see how you did against other schools, but really it was Jiu-Jitsu versus Jiu-Jitsu, which is what competition is. It's not Jiu-Jitsu versus non-Jiu-Jitsu, or in a self-defense situation, you're going to have somebody pick on you. And here's another story that I was kind of thinking of. I was watching The Ultimate Fighter once, and if you remember Rodrigo Minotauro, one of the Nogueira brothers, the one who fought in Pride, the heavier one, not the lighter one. In The Ultimate Fighter, he was coaching a team, and the other coach was Vinny Magalis, who was, I think he's a Gracie Baja guy. Somebody had asked Vinny Magalis, what's the difference between you and Jiu-Jitsu and Minotauro and Jiu-Jitsu? And he said in a not so disrespectful manner, just matter of fact, said, I do kind of a newer style of Jiu-Jitsu. Nogueira's kind of the old style, and Nogueira took it as an insult. I don't know. I kind of think it's good, to have your own style and to be good with it. Nogueira's style was very effective in Pride. He did very well. Vinny Magalis in the UFC, he did okay. I think that Nogueira did better. And Pride was a lot more violent than was the UFC. Not that the UFC is not violent, but in Pride, they had fewer rules. You could soccer style kick somebody in the head when he's down. I don't know if you could stomp anybody. Anyway, and I remember seeing once in a Pride fight where Alan Goes was fighting Mark Coleman, and Alan Goes got caught down in the turtle position. Mark Coleman moved to the top of his head and just popped a couple of knees right into his head. You just hear boop, boop, and you see Alan Goes just crumbled. Those are pretty brutal. Or what about when Quentin Rampage Jackson was put in a triangle by Ricardo Arona, and he just picked him up and bam, knocked him out cold. Those kind of stuff you saw happen in Pride. In Pride, they didn't care about drugs. You look at some guys, they were much bigger and stronger than when they showed up in the UFC because of the whole drug testing that happens. New school is more MMA, old school more Vale Tudo. Why did the new school kind of gravitate towards MMA? Because in a lot of the, if your jiu-jitsu is basically competition jiu-jitsu, then a lot of the self-defense you don't do. You don't have the old traditional types of value and mindset in your jiu-jitsu. So what happens is you tend to just train on the ground, start on your knees, play guard a lot. Whereas in a street fight, you don't really want to play guard. You're more forced to play guard. You don't go to guard by choice. Whereas in competition, it's a strategy. You start from guard, and a lot of these other games that have evolved in the competition game, I can't even keep up with them. But this is not really new. But the Della Riva is a very old game. But the Berimbolo is relatively new. Half guard it's not new, but it's not really going back traditional as well. Elio's sons didn't really play half guard all that much. You have worm guard, koala guard, upside guard, inverted guard, 50-50. Those are all newer techniques, new school techniques that you don't typically see in an old school. Only because they work for competition. You don't have people jumping guard so much, in a non-tournament setting. Really, that's really the new school of jiu-jitsu. New school jiu-jitsu is for a lot of people, especially the kids starting up, it's a substitute for another martial art like say karate or taekwondo. Back in the old school, it wasn't you take jiu-jitsu because you want to gain self-esteem and self-confidence. It was so you can fight. And I'm sure that back at the Gracie Academy in Brazil, they would teach kids only because Rio was a pretty dangerous place to live, and you needed to know how to protect yourself. Here in Texas, North DFW, it's pretty safe here. Where our other campuses in Southern California and Irvine, it's very safe there. You have pretty low risk of being assaulted. Other parts of the country that maybe it wouldn't be that way. You need to actually learn how to fight. But the types of jiu-jitsu that are popular in Southern California and here in North DFW is more the competition stuff, because if there's no fear of being attacked in your everyday life, then it makes a lot of sense to do the sport stuff, to do the new school jiu-jitsu. Like what happened, why did judo start? It's because Jigoro Kano just figured, this jiu-jitsu stuff that he was a master of, a lot of weapons with the armor on and the swords and all the other techniques that jiu-jitsu encompassed really didn't make sense for life in Japan at the turn of the century. Japan was not a barbaric place. It was safe. You could walk around and not have to worry about it, but at the same time, you still needed to know some sort of self-defense, which is why he basically cut out a lot of the techniques in jiu-jitsu and distilled it down to judo to what he thought were important techniques. Now, fast forward to today, if it's not important for you to learn the stuff that the Gracies traditionally did in Brazil, because in Brazil it's a little different way of life, here in the U.S., at least where a lot of jiu-jitsu studios are, because jiu-jitsu does tend to cater to a more income demographic. You don't see too much jiu-jitsu in the inner cities, so it then tends to be in a safer area. So then you can kind of go toward the non-self-defense and go in toward the competitive things that would give you an advantage in a competition. And that's why more jiu-jitsu is taught in the new school than it is in the old school, because it really caters to the market itself. Now that you know the difference between old school and new school, you now have to make a determination. Which do you want to learn? Would you rather learn the old traditional stuff, which there is a market for that, or would you rather learn the new stuff and compete with it? Just know that there are advantages and disadvantages to both. I can't say one is better than the other. I just say what I prefer and what we prefer at Kama Jiu-Jitsu, but that doesn't mean that there's no reason to do the other stuff. In fact, if you train in a traditional type school, you can compete with it, and if your fundamentals are good, you'll do just fine. Take your pick, whatever works for you. whatever works for your temperament, whatever works for your whatever's convenient to you, then by all means do it. Have fun with it. You know, just because there's something that I prefer or that Professor Dave prefers doesn't mean that's what you need to prefer as well. So anyway, that's all I got for you. Hope you're doing well, and remember to, you know, try to be safe when you're training. Happy training. Oh, one more. Thanks for sharing our videos. We've seen our subscribers ramp up pretty nicely in the last few months. You know, we've been trying to keep up with the channel more and provide more content to you. Continue to comment and let us know what kind of stuff you want us to cover, and if it's something that Dave or I or any of our other black belts can cover, we will. Once again, happy training. Take care. Bye.